5 storylines for the Giants as we get into the second half. That's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Alan Stiles, talking Giants baseball with you Monday through Friday as we make our way through the All-Star break. On today's show, we have 5 second-half storylines. That's from John Shea of the SF Standard, a profile on Peyton Bonds, the nephew of Barry Bonds, the slugger out of Rutgers. What does he bring to the table, and how can he help the Giants once he's up with the big league club? And some second half adjustments that I cooked up. Some of it's just for fun. Some of it is to see what else the Giants could maybe bring to the table to spice things up, because the reality is this season, as we know it, is essentially over. So you might as well try out some new stuff. So we'll have some fun with that at the end of the show. But let's start with the 5 storylines that John Shea has cooked up for the Giants heading into the second half. He says 5 Giants storylines that will define their future, starting with who gets traded. And he says, because the Giants aren't playoff bound, they hold an advantage over Major League Baseball teams that are contending, or at least believe they can contend. Unlike most of the field in this expanded playoff era, the Giants are in a position with 2.5 months left in the season to look to 2027 and beyond and no longer sweat over their record. Well, John, that's a very optimistic way to say that the Giants stunk this season and their season's over before everyone else. So I appreciate John on that. He talks about the record, then goes on to say, now it's about stepping back and starting over, or at least moving on from the 2026 game plan that crashed and burned beyond the day Jeff Kent is inducted into the Hall of Fame, July 26th, and the day to honor the next Wall of Fame class. Here are 5 things to monitor in the Giants' second half. So he starts with the trade deadline. Of course, it's no secret the most easily tradable players approaching the deadline, Robbie Ray, Luis Arraez, because they're enjoying productive seasons and are free agency bound. Arraez said he's open to a contract extension, but if traded, he wants to stay at second base. Scuffling Tyler Mahle will also be a free agent, and the Giants would be fine getting a prospect in return. They'd listen to teams on their big money guys, Devers, Adames, Chapman, but they'd need to eat a large chunk of any contract. Adames and Chapman have veto power, and Chapman agent Scott Boras said a trade is not something on the radar. Okay. So next he has the pitching. The offense was absent in April and still has its April-like tendencies. The defense remains a concern in certain areas on the diamond. The base running is iffy, though better with new third base coach Gary Pettis aboard. The Giants need to clean it all up, but nothing will matter if they don't get their pitching in order, as proven in the championship years. The only way to win at Oracle Park is with pitching and defense, mostly pitching. So he has that for the second. He also brings up Carson Whisenhunt. He says he'll get a chance in the second half to solidify himself in the rotation. We should see more of Blade Tidwell. Finally, my guy Blade Tidwell. Let's see what he can do. Jackson Flora, said he's ready to go now, but management wants him to succeed in the minors before calling him to the bigs. The Giants want more of Landon Roop in the second half to accompany Webb, as Randy Rodriguez and Hayden Birdsong rehab from Tommy John surgery. It's never too early to load up on young pitching at the deadline through the offseason, at least before the possible owners lockout in December. So keep an eye on moves they may try to make before that lockout happens to figure some things out, because we know that when it's all paused, it's going to be quite weird. The third thing that John Shea has is the manager. Tony Vitello, an easy target, but he's far from the problem. With better roster construction, especially on the pitching staff, he'd have a far better chance to succeed, and we'd have far better intel to measure him against other managers. Doubtful Bruce Bochy or Dusty Baker could work their magic with this bullpen, which lacks not only depth, but assignment of roles. And just to let everyone know, the contract here, 2 more seasons Vitello has on his 3-year, $10.5 million contract. And it would be stunning if he's not back in 2027 unless he insists on returning to the SEC. Posey's not ready to give up on the guy. He pulled out of the college ranks to re-energize his roster. Vitello is learning plenty in year 1 and certainly won't go into next season without a better handle on communication and fundamentals. And perhaps it'll take more coaching changes to get the job done. Then he gives some examples of would Devers have shown up, Bochy or Dusty Baker, some things like that. Yeah, I mean, he just wasn't set up to succeed, right? We all know that. He was not set up to succeed in any way, shape, or form. I don't think he's been perfect, but he was not put in the best situation to get this team where everybody wants the team to go. So you can put blame on Tony Vitello, but ultimately this team was not constructed in a way that was conducive to winning. It just wasn't. And Tony Vitello is going to take a lot of blame because he is unique. He is eccentric. He is just a different style of coach, on top of the fact that we have all these kind of feelings about skipping the line and things like that. So I don't see the Giants moving on from Tony Vitello. I haven't heard anything about that. It's all connected, right? Because Buster Posey, I think ownership likes Buster Posey. And Buster Posey likes Tony Vitello. And I think Buster Posey, who I listened to some of the KMBR interview this morning, it just sounded like they were due to have a softer go. At least that's from what I heard. It didn't seem, and like we always kind of joke about, nothing has really been posted about it. It was 2 hours ago. So you can go check that out yourself. Didn't seem like Buster said very much of anything outside of what he's been saying. And I don't really blame him. What else is he supposed to say? At this point, they're making calls. They're trying to get some guys to different locations, to different organizations, and get some draft assets in return. But Tony Vitello is connected to Buster Posey, which, in my opinion, makes him safe. So the only question is how safe the boss is. So next on the list at number, I believe, 4, I believe, is the boss. Posey badly wants to turn around the Giants' fortunes. Mediocrity was never his thing. He's taking some mighty hits for how this team has underperformed, and his once untouchable legacy is being challenged. He remains on a pedestal as one of the most storied and beloved players in franchise history, but he has a long way to go to succeed on the executive side. Posey's free agent signings, other than Arraez, haven't paid off, and one of the great oddities of 2026 is why the bullpen wasn't enhanced this offseason, at least with an ample collection of newcomers, with the logic that a few would stick and produce. It speaks volumes that designated closer Caleb Killian was acquired as a minor league free agent. Ryan Walker fizzled and Birdsong got hurt. What's left is a group of complementary pieces that haven't worked as a unit. So Posey, interestingly enough, we never talk about his contract. Posey is on a 3-year deal and has 1 year left after this. Okay, so I don't just because I don't think the powers that be would fire him, that doesn't mean that I am sure that they'll bring him back. So that's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, he's still got a couple years on the contract, so that's not going to, I don't think anything is going to change drastically. I'd be very, very surprised if it changed drastically based on this season. And last but not least, John writes, the attendance, despite the season spinning out of control, fans keep showing up at Oracle Park. A stunning development considering all the on-field deficiencies and the team's place in the standings. The Giants have an outside chance to draw 3 million fans for the first time since 2018. They average over 36,000 fans a game, 6th highest in the majors, and would need to average over 37 the rest of the way to hit 3 million. I don't think that's going to be possible. I mean, I know Giants fans, they show out, but this second half obviously is not going to have as many bells and whistles because it's almost over. So I'd be surprised if they get it. But hey, you want to go out there, get your crab sandwich, get your Ghirardelli, your Dippin' Dots, more power to you. More power to you. But I think the overarching theme here is you have to see something, right? That doesn't mean that guys got to hit 500, but you just have to leave the season with something. Tony Vitello has to leave the season with something. Buster Posey, I mean, he can still have a really good trade deadline. If he can work some moves, people would be feeling better about him. If he can find a way to move one of these big contracts, I think it would be a win in a season full of losses. So a lot of different avenues where the Giants can tweak a couple things and hopefully feel better as the season, the initial objective of the season is now changing. And that's just what it is. On the other side, we have a profile on nephew of Barry Bonds, Peyton Bonds, but that's not the only reason the Giants drafted him. More Locked On Giants coming up. This episode is sponsored by FanDuel. On the biggest stage in the world, FanDuel is changing the game because sometimes your player gets subbed off and your bet goes with them. Not anymore. With FanDuel Super Sub, if your player is subbed out, your bet stays in. That's right. If your player leaves the match, your bet continues on with the substitute. So you're still in it until the final whistle. Of course, you have Spain taking on Argentina. If for some odd reason Messi got subbed out, you would still be able to be a part of that bet with whoever subbed in for him, because there's nothing worse than having a great pick and watching your player get pulled in the 60th minute. With Super Sub, that bet doesn't die. It just goes the distance with the sub. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON to get started now. Next segment with you, and as promised, we have a profile on Peyton Bonds, and they want you to know this is not just about Barry Bonds, right? That was something that they said when they drafted Peyton Bonds, but funny enough, when they did draft Peyton Bonds and Tony Vitello was asked about him, the quote was, anytime you get a guy named Bonds, you're crazy if you don't get excited. So as everybody else, the scouting and Buster, hey, this isn't just about his name. Tony Vitello says, well, you're crazy if that doesn't get you excited. So we're just having some fun with Tony because he's right. And they drafted Peyton Bonds in round 3. Pick number 90 out of Rutgers, the calling card, the nephew of Giants legend Barry Bonds. Peyton posted a 352, 436, 535 slash line with 6 home runs in 36 games at Rutgers this year. He has a good feel for hitting, producing plenty of bat speed and high exit velocity. Here is the kind of deeper breakdown from MLB.com. Yes, it is that Bonds. Peyton is the son of Bobby, who played 11 years of pro ball with the Padres, Giants, and an indie ball. Grandson of Bobby, that was Bobby Jr., his dad, whose big league career spanned 14 years, and nephew of Barry. Also as an outfielder, Peyton went from Franklin High School in New Jersey, where he was a teammate of Joshua Karuta Grauer, to Campbell University for his freshman year. He then returned to the Garden State to play for Rutgers, where he had a solid sophomore season, then turned his performance up a notch this spring, though a hamstring injury in April kept him off the field. He's 6'5", 230 pounds. Bonds looks like he was sent down from Central Casting. Even if his current offensive profile doesn't quite fit the body type, he has a really good feel to hit with excellent in-zone bat-to-ball skills. There's plenty of bat speed and high exit velocities, but it hasn't translated to power just yet, with some thinking there could be more unlocked at the next level. While Peyton has average speed, maybe a tick better, he might not be a pure base stealer, but he can really play center field with outstanding instincts to stay up the middle for a long time. He gets high marks for his plus makeup and passion for the game, perhaps handed down from his father, who grinded it out in the minors for more than a decade. So great stuff. We talked a little bit about Peyton Bonds before the draft. The Giants do end up taking him, and I think the reality is just, probably fairly low expectations is fair. He's a third round guy. Obviously, we know the cachet that it all comes with, but you have no clue what it's going to become. I think the reason people are excited is because the exit velos are there. It's just not translating the launch angle. I'm going to be honest with you, and I believe it was 11 home runs in over 90 games, 96 games, which isn't terrible, but it's nothing that you would just, your jaw would drop over. I'm going to be honest with you. It seems a little bit like Peyton Bonds is what I would call and what some of my teammates would call a BP all-star. It kind of comes off like, to this point, he's been a batting practice all-star. So what a batting practice all-star is, it's fairly self-explanatory. This guy, every time it's time to take BP at practice, a batting practice, or before a game, he puts on a show. Everybody's watching. He's sending, 5 balls over the wall every round. Scouts love to watch him. He's a great showcase guy, but he hasn't been able to translate that to in-game play. Not that he's played poorly. His average has been super solid. His average has been good. I would even say, but from the power perspective, you're looking at what the potential is, not what they've done so far. So hopefully you get to a point where, okay, cool, now it's going to actually translate. But so far, it does not seem like it has. So no disrespect, but that's when I read this stuff and read the profiles on Peyton Bonds, that's what it has always sounded like to me. He is your classic batting practice hero, depending on when games are. If a game is at 5, somebody would say, oh, he's a 2 o'clock hitter, or he's a 3 o'clock hitter because you take batting practice a couple hours before the game. So he's got it. And look, those guys, they always get drafted. They always have somebody that will take a chance on them because they show enough, right? And they show you flashes every time. But at some point, you're going to have to find out a way to translate that, and he hasn't been able to fully do it so far, specifically from the power perspective. Love the bat to ball skills, but it's the power perspective that they are going to pay attention to at the next level because of his size. Can he put that together? But even still, I mean, even if the power doesn't fully come, if he's able to be more of a base stealer than he is right now, he can find his niche somewhere. On the other side, let's get into some fun second half adjustments that the Giants maybe should just try. Why not at this point? Why not? More Locked On Giants coming up. A big thank you to our friends at Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back-to-school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on the list, then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. You don't need to tell me about the growth spurt. When you buy clothes for back to school, then your kid has a growth spurt 2 weeks later, and you're right back where you started. Sometimes it genuinely feels like they're growing faster than your budget can keep up. I got lucky with 2 girls, so at least there's some hand-me-down situations going on. But when the oldest is getting too big, then you still gotta spend that money. So remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. Last segment, and I just wanted to have some fun. I came up with some adjustments, and they're real. Don't get me wrong; they're realistic adjustments. And I figured, hey, this season is down the toilet. Why not try out some different things? Okay, I'm going to start with Jung Hoo Lee. I'd like to see, especially if they trade Luis Arraez, I'd like to see a true tryout for Jung Hoo Lee at the top of the lineup. I know he's been hitting really well in the 6th spot or the 5th spot. I understand that, but the season is over, right? The season is over. So let's try out some new things. Let's see if Jung Hoo Lee can be a table setter, because Luis Arraez is no longer going to be on the squad. We don't think if you keep him, then yeah, that would be tougher. But I want to see Jung Hoo Lee at the top of the lineup pretty much every day. Jung Hoo Lee has no business hitting in the 6th spot. I've always felt like that. I think a lot of fans have felt like that. He has no business hitting in the 6th spot. So I want to see Jung Hoo Lee at the top of the lineup after, as we can assume, Luis Arraez gets traded. I'd also like to see Adrian Houser back in the rotation. And I know what you're thinking, but to me, this is a possible trade value play. You have this guy for 2 years. and he got kicked out of the rotation. He's got essentially negative value. Find a way to build that value, get him back in the rotation. Because to me, as we'll discuss, or we already did discuss some other pitchers coming up, I understand it, but it's not as if the pitchers coming up are new guys that we've never seen before, right? So we know what the Carson Wisenhunts, we know what a lot of them bring to the table, and they can all get opportunities. I'm not saying not to throw them at all, but that back end of the rotation, just mix it up a little bit. You know, Adrian Houser has pitched well coming out of the bullpen, some low leverage situations, but just mix it up a little bit. I would like to see Adrian Houser back in the rotation to try to build up that trade value. Not that I want him to pitch over the younger guys, but you don't really have younger guys that you truly feel, I don't think, are being stymied if you move Adrian Houser back into the rotation. I know Trevor McDonald is the obvious conversation there. I do think that when you get to this point of the season, you can mix and match a little bit. So I don't need to have him in the rotation, but it just feels like the contract is even worse if you're using him as a bullpen guy, and maybe that just is what it is. Next on the list, I want to see Casey Schmitt at shortstop more. That, I guess, means Willy Adames playing less, and no disrespect to him, but I mean, that is something I'm not opposed to. I think I want to see, again, if Luis Arraez gets traded, Casey Schmitt will play second base. But if not, and you're still trying to find him spots, I want to see if Casey Schmitt can hold it down at the shortstop position, because if you are able to move on from Willy Adames, those guys, all the 15 shortstops that the Giants have in their system, they're not ready quite yet. So I'd like to see Casey Schmitt at shortstop more. He's been incredible at third base when he's played there. But yeah, I'd like to see him at shortstop, just because, really, I don't know if he's going to be the shortstop for the Giants and for the foreseeable future. Well, the Giants still have Adames on their payroll, so that would be tough. But I just think that it would be nice to see Casey Schmitt at shortstop a little bit, because honestly, on the flip side, I know nobody wants to move him. That would also help his trade value as well. And last but not least, this one I'm really having some fun with, and I don't know how far gone it is, but I'd like to see Rafael Devers back at third base. I would like to see some games where Rafael Devers goes back to third base. And I know part of the reason he got moved from third base, or the Red Sox wanted to move him, is because that defense was looking a little shaky. But it just gives you so much more optionality, especially when Luis Arraez gets moved, assuming he does. It gives you so many more options if you put Rafael Devers at third base, and obviously Matt Chapman is there, but it just gives you a different look. I know Bryce Eldridge has been playing a ton, but the DH conversation and how expensive Rafael Devers is as a DH and first baseman, if you can say, hey, he's still playing third on certain days, Matt Chapman's getting a day off, so Rafael Devers is going to play third. I don't know if they fully closed the door on that, but I would be interested to watch Rafael Devers play some third base, because why not? You know, why not? I mean, rolling this thing out as if it matters as far as your seeding and how many games back you are, that's not necessarily the case anymore. Now, you can get hot, don't get me wrong. This isn't stuff that's going to happen at the beginning of the second half. I'm thinking, you know, okay, we didn't go on a historic run within the first month of the second half. Now, at that point, too, you would know if Luis Arraez is still on the squad or not. All right, let's not have fun, because it's not fun to lose, but let's see what a couple of different things look like. As John Shea said, you have a leg up on the competition. You're basically preparing for 2027 months before everybody else. And that was a very optimistic spin, but months before everybody else. So you can pick and choose and figure out how exactly you think this thing should go. And I would like to see, to go back over them, Jung Hoo Lee higher in the lineup, Adrian Houser back in the rotation at times, and that's a trade value play. Casey Schmitt as shortstop more, just because I want to see it, because I like watching him play defense, and Rafael Devers at third base, maybe trying to at least show that he can still do it. I have no clue. That's the one. It's probably done, but I don't know that the Giants ever full on said, no, he'll never play third base again. So why not? I mean, didn't they have Jonah Cox at second base at some point? And he looked good too. So a lot of weird things have happened this season. I don't see why we can't just keep it going with some other random things that actually could help the Giants, or at least give the Giants a little bit more flexibility in the near future, or maybe down the line, next season or a couple seasons from then, because there's only a couple more years Rafael Devers will even be able to play third base, in my opinion. So just to get him over there, hey, make sure you're a little loose, right? You never know what could happen. I think that would be nice. But well, here's the thing. If Matt Chapman got traded and you traded Luis Arraez, are you rocking with the Christian Casas of the world and guys like that? Or would you think about maybe Devers at third and Schmitt at second, and then obviously you'd have Eldridge at first? I don't think that's impossible. Probably won't happen. But again, they haven't, as far as I know, said, oh, Rafi, they've said he is our first baseman, not he will exclusively play first base no matter what the situation is. It was just assumed because of Matt Chapman. So we'll see. We'll see. Thank you for listening to Locked On Giants. Thank you for watching Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me on social media at @the_Styles Files. Styles with an I. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, peace.